So I wanted to talk a little bit about our rainwater system. Water collection was really important to us when we started all of this. These barrels came from Barrel Superstore in Greenville, South Carolina. It's about an hour and a half away from us. And they are super duper nice people, really, really helpful. These barrels, they look like 55 gallon and they are close to that, but they're in a metric measurement. So they were really cheap. I think most of Barrel Superstore's customer base are medical companies that need that exact 55 gallon measurement. So these were 12 bucks a piece. They did not come plumb though. We had to create the actual rainwater system with them. But for each one that costs about 10 bucks at Lowe's, so total $22 maybe. We have in the top, there's a hole cut. There is a quart container kind of fitted into it, and then just a screen in the bottom of the quart container that'll catch any sort of leaves or debris that are coming down out of the gutters. We have 4 of these around our property. 2 are plumbed into the gutters on our house, and 2 are plumbed into the gutters on our garage. The 2 on our house will fill up in about an hour of rainfall. So underneath them we have 2 more overflow barrels. Those ones are not fitted with the knob and everything to plug into a hose. So for those, we'll just use a pump to access that water later. So with these, we wanted to place them at really high points on our property. The 2 on our front porch are about half a story off the ground, and the rest of the property slopes down below it. And the 2 that are plumbed into the garage are just sitting on the ground, but the garage is one of the highest points on our property. So with that, we can plug hoses in, and the sprayer nozzle will actually be gravity fed, especially when these are full. We get great water pressure. We can water all of our gardens with them, especially with the amount of rain that we get around here. There have been maybe a couple of days that we've had to plug into the hose from the house instead of using these, but we haven't had as much rain lately as we are probably about to get. So it just depends on how full these are and how good the pressure is. Also how far down the hill you are. It'll be a little better when we're further down the hill.
Alright, so I'm going to show you how I've been making these rain barrels. This rain barrel, Laurel has already talked about how we sourced it. It's 12 bucks. We got this. The other 2 parts that you need are going to be a boiler, drain fitting, and a little male fitting. This is 3/4 inch male fitting, thread into it, and that's pretty much all you need to put this together. There's some other parts that I've found to make the process a little bit easier, so I will go through and show that as I make this rain barrel. Alright, so one of the tricks I figured out to make this process easier, mostly in feeding this male fitting down into the barrel, is using this piece of 5/16 round stock that I had laying around. And basically I'm going to drill 2 holes into the side of this so I can just wedge this round stock down in there, feed it down into the barrel, and it'll also stop it from turning while I'm threading on the hose fitting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I've got this piece drilled out. As you can see, that round stock will go all the way through it, again to help feed it down and keep it from spinning while I'm threading that female end of the boiler drain from the outside of the barrel. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is attach, this is some kind of hose repair tape, and this stretches around pretty much anything, creates a watertight seal and sticks only to itself, so it works really well for sealing that on the inside, this fitting on the inside of the barrel, to keep that water pressure from pushing the water out through the fittings, which you don't want because then it's going to leak. So I'll put this on here. You only need about 10 inches of it. I'm just going to stretch this out over kind of the lip past the threaded point, because that's where it's going to make its contact with the inside of the barrel. So I'm going to start this out right about here. And again, this stretches real well and it's going to stick to itself. So once you wrap this around, a few times. I think you can see that. And it's going to stick to itself. This is going to create a nice little watertight barrier whenever this fitting is pushed up, threaded in tight with the boiler drain fitting. So now I've got this set up, just a little bit of Teflon tape on it so that whenever it threads up, it won't leak again. And I will show you how I get this inside the barrel. All right, so we're ready to drill the hole that this spigot's going to go on the barrel. For a 3/4 inch fitting like that, to get that threaded in through, you're going to need a 1-inch hole saw. So that's what I'm going to use. A couple of things is it's easiest to go down this seam because that's going to line up with this top opening here. So it's going to be easier to feed it straight down whenever you need to get it on the inside. Another thing I did not mention is with this fitting right here, I kind of drill it higher on one end, and that's going to kind of help match up. You can see the beveled angle down here at the bottom, so that fitting's going to go through straighter like that. So I'm going to go ahead and drill out the hole here. Put your gloves on, safety first, not the time to go to the hospital right now. All right, so we're going to follow this seam down, put it up maybe about 2 inches from the bottom there. You don't want to lose too much on the bottom because you want all of that barrel to drain out, but you also don't want to get it down here where it's going to be harder to work down at the angle of the barrel. All right, so now we've got that drilled out. The next thing that I'm going to do is sand this down. So we're going to end up with a flat surface that boiler fitting can push onto. It's also going to help to thin out a bit of the wall of this barrel. It's pretty thick. It's a good 5/8 of an inch thick. So we're just losing thread on there to catch. So go ahead and sand this down, and that way it'll be nice and flush. Get it just a little bit thinner, and then we're going to kind of clean up this hole a little bit with this rounded file so that we have an easier time getting that through. It's going to be pretty snug 1 inch with that 3/4 inch fitting, but with a little bit of filing and sanding, it goes in pretty much snug, which will make a watertight seal. That's done. All right, so you can see this is sanded pretty flush there. It's gonna give a nice seal on the front side of that fitting. Not too important because again, we've got that flex seal stuff or hose repair tape or whatever it's called, as well as the Teflon. So probably wouldn't have an issue anyway, but at least it gets it nice and flush, looks a little bit neater, and thins out that wall a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and file this down just to kind of clean up that hole that we made. Pick that out. Go ahead and take this top plug out. This is when we will use this piece of round stock here. So this angle coming in this way, that round stock, you're going to want the most shallow end towards the top. Get this angle right. This fits in snug if I use the right drill bit. I did. All right, just like that, all the way through, but you just want it kind of flush there on the top. Again, it's going to keep it from spinning as well as feed this down. All right, so with this lined up in the hole there, another thing that I made, that'll stay, is I took this little hex key and kind of made a little candy cane out of it. I'll put this in vice grips and I can reach around that round stock and then pull that right through the hole. Again, keeping that hole as small as possible, which is going to keep it as snug as possible and leak free as possible. If I can find them vice grips. And I tried to use some other things. Started out with coat hanger and then some lighter gauge wire, and you know, I could get it to feed through kinda and pull it through this little candy cane I made here, but nothing was rigid enough to keep it from stop spinning, so you're kind of just hoping that you threaded it enough to get a seal on there. Pull it through just like that. Again, once you get this thread started, it'll catch and pull this through the rest of the way. Grab these vice grips again, open them up. And I've made raid barrels before using different kind of stuff, and it always ended up being a lot of silicone caulk, which kind of hold, most of the time doesn't. So this creates nice watertight seal. And again, it's this round stock that's keeping the inside from spinning, while I can really crank down on this outside. Once it gets pretty hard to do, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be a watertight seal, and just keep spinning it clockwise until you get that spigot facing down. Make everything else easier. And that's about it. Take these vice grips out just to help pull out this. You can see it was pretty snug in there, which is why it's keeping everything together while I'm working. Everything as snug as possible. That way you don't have to baby anything. Just like that. What we can do now, fill this up a little bit. One thing I didn't mention is I'd already washed these out. These specifically came, they said that they had either IV saline in them or lactic acid. They were empty, but it's good to just kind of hose them out. It's not something that you want that concentration of wearing away down at the fittings down there. Don't know what the effect would be. Probably just smart to go ahead and rinse them out anyway. So I'd already done that to these. We'll just give it a little bit of a water test. Get that water line up past where the fitting is. Yeah, you can tell nothing's dripping out. It's gonna be good to go. Everything's nice and snug. You can see everything works. Now, if I was gonna hook this up to the gutter up there, one of the downspouts, what I had done is I'd just taken a jigsaw and cut out a big enough opening here to put a yogurt container or whatever we had around, that again I could put a screen down in the bottom of to catch any leaves or debris or whatever, and it would be big enough on the top end to have the water flow into it. But for these that I'm making right now, we're just putting down at the bottom of the hill. We use them for overflow, just gravity feed. Once the top barrels are full up, we can just hook a hose, basically just put a hose down through the opening here, put the hose at a lower point and give it a little bit of a shake and water will start coming out, and we can fill these guys up down the hill. That's it. Basically, you just want to create a little bit of airflow, push it back up the hose. It's going to put a little bit of extra pressure inside there. Obviously, the hose in there is down the water line all the way down the bottom of the barrel. So that way we get every last drop out of it. Even picking it up like this, it's still below the level given the hill that we live on. Get this
Woo! Lord. What if we just strapped him to that post?
That's why I put him next to the pole. His head goes there yet. Still ain't leaking. Well, at least if it falls now, it's going to fall away from the fitting. We still got water. About half full.
Fitting didn't even break.
About a third full. Time I could lift it. Still filling up. Again, this top line here is still lower than the bottom of the other barrel, so that thing will drain dry. And then I will take that one out and put a spigot on it. That's about it.
Alright y'all, I hope you enjoyed that video on our rainwater system. One little edit, the fittings cost actually about $8, so $20 rain barrel system. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks so much for watching.